Welcome to Pub Natter, where we record each episode in a different pub in Rutland, the smallest county in England. In each episode, your hosts, Tim and Justin, give a voice to the landlords and landladies and a special guest with a specific area of interest or expertise. We hope you enjoy our chats, and it encourages you to go and explore our little county and all it has to offer. Like the motto says, there is much in little. This episode was recorded at the Noel in Whitwell, Rutland. We continue our chat with Julian Carter, the co-owner and head baker of Rutland's award-winning Hambleton Bakery. We begin part 2, where Julian had just discussed how he developed his oven and now he is ready to start his bakery business. When rain stops play, it's time for some pub natter. So you've got, your dream is coming to fruition, and then you've got the opportunity now to bake whatever you want. What's the thought process is now? You kind of sit down and think, right, what are we actually going to do? What are we going to make? What's our philosophy?
Well, I'd love to say I had this marvellous philosophy, but basically I looked at the hotel that we were going to be supplying, which was Hambleton Hall and Hart's Restaurant in Nottingham, and what they wanted. I looked at sort of unusual things that we could do that I always wanted to do, like English muffins and beer barn breads and things like that, and then sourdoughs and stuff like that. So these were all things I thought had a commercial value that nobody else was making, and I could sell to hotels and restaurants other than our own. So when you do a business plan in your head, you think, look, these are the products we're going to make. But the big thing about us was we knew how to make it and what we were going to do in that format. We were not going to use additives. We were going to use local ingredients where possible. And we were going to use good quality ingredients to make the products and time. And that was, it was a slow grow, but it was really important that we stuck to our principles. Which is, I haven't invented anything new. These are really just old-fashioned recipes that we've gone back to.
Sure.
Yeah,
so here's your opportunity to explain to the listeners the difference between ultra-processed bread that feels like sponge and weighs no more than a feather that you buy in a supermarket compared to your processed bread. What's the difference?
Well, I don't like the word processed anyway, I'm afraid.
Well, it is processed.
It is, you're right, it is a process. But the main difference is that we are adding an ingredient that's always forgotten about these days, which is time. So fermentation creates flavour and texture. It breaks down the gluten. It makes it more digestible. That takes time. You can't rush it. The other thing is how many additives do you put into... are any of those additives there for your benefit? And the answer is no. Some are, because the government make them put iron, calcium and vitamin B in it, and probably folic acid will be one they put in soon, although I think you're better off putting in Prosecco than bread these days. But I think these are the things you have to have. But that's like fluoride in water. They use bread as a way of dosing the nation. Because after the First World War, they wanted to give people these ingredients, and bread was the best way of giving it. I think if you look at it now, it's probably not the best way of giving it at all.
There's an argument against compulsory medication as well.
Yeah, especially with the folic acid. There are arguments of and is there evidence? I can't get into that.
There's no evidence for vitamin supplements on their own. All the evidence points to the fact that the food itself has to have the vitamins in it to be of any benefit.
Right, it has to actually be in there. Yeah.
It has to be part of the food.
Yeah. So, I certainly don't believe that bread is the way to put these things in.
No.
If you're going to take supplements. Why put it in the bread? But it's been the law since the end of the First World War, and I think what happened with the First World War also happened to bread. Is suddenly they decided how they're going to feed the world for the next 50, 60 years, and so they came up with intensive farming. They came up with chorley wood and ways of making food last longer. They came up with all these ways of doing things, which meant, and they overdid it. They overcatered, if you like, to be able to. So from the farming to the bread itself, it's all overdone. It's intensive farming, followed by intensive bread making, if you like.
Yeah.
How can we make the most of it? And if you can take that bread and roll it back into a ball of dough in your hand.
It's horrible, isn't it?
A good sign of a loaf of bread is you should be able to squash it flat and it should bounce back.
Yeah.
It shouldn't go like dough. And you can't digest that. what you're basically eating is an edible serviette. You
Yeah.
know, when you're having a sandwich.
It's worse than that because of all the other stuff they're putting in it.
Yeah, you don't want it. There's various levels of bad, but the worst ones, and they really are bad. You know, I always say our bread costs more, and this is my biggest bugbear: is why is your bread so expensive? You know, you're not in London. Why are you charging London prices? I get it all the time, but I don't make any more profit than anybody else. 2 pence in the pound is profit, but the ingredients are really expensive.
Sure.
You know, and this is the important thing. We won't compromise on that. It's handmade. No machines will work with our bread. It's too wet and sticky and too gassed up to work with machines. So it has to be handmade, so it's labour intensive.
Yeah.
But we have to make literally everything that goes into the bakery, from the mincemeat in your mincemeat tarts to every pastry, to every dough, to every ingredient, to avoid additives. It's so hard to avoid additives. I won't use palm oil.
Well, that's that. Do you know how the rain? You know, the chopping down the rainforests to grow these plantations to create palm oil. It's the size of New Zealand now.
Really, I had no idea it was that big.
23 million hectares of palm oil plantations.
Yeah, and it's mass producers who need it. You know, it's a bit as an ingredient. It's they can't do without it, and so people will. If you buy it, people will make it.
And it's rubbish. Do you know 66% of that goes on fuel?
No.
It's the majority of palm oil is fuel, and then there's a bit of cosmetics, and the remainder is food. Well, it's not food; it's food-like substance.
Well, if you're putting margarine on, you're almost certainly putting palm oil on.
Yeah, and there's petroleum in that as well.
Is that? I didn't even know.
Because they use hexane in that process.
Right.
Don't get me started on flipping emulsifiers.
Oh, you see, that's the thing. You know, when you see the WI making sponge cakes and things like that, they always use stalk margarine or that sort of thing because it contains emulsifiers, so they never split the egg, if you know what I mean. So I don't like stalk; it makes a better cake, but it's because it's got emulsifiers it makes a better cake.
So when I switched from the awful white sliced 20p loaves that still make fantastic toast.
Disagree.
They do. But when I switched from those many years ago to a kind of a multi-grain, was it multi-seed batch or whatever, kind of the higher end of the supermarkets, how far along the road to goodness have I come? 50%, 70%,
I'd say
20%?
50%. So if you think of that like a white loaf with malt and some seeds in, so where's your bran? Where's your natural fibre? So whole meal should mean the whole grain turned into bread. That's all the bran, everything that's in it turned into bread. That's what whole meal should be. But legally, you think 30% you need to put in. The rest of it is white flour. You know, if you make a whole meal loaf, it's a dense, heavy product. It's beautifully tasty. It toasts much better than that white bread, I promise you. And you get a delicious flavour from it, and it tastes like it should of wheat. But that's absolutely packed full of natural fibre. See, in a way, the chemistry of eating grain is we're not really designed to eat grain. If you tried to eat it from the field, it wouldn't do you any good at all. And you don't actually take many nutrients out of that grain either. Because if you've got like a cow and you've got like 4 stomachs, most of that will go straight through and you won't take many nutrients out of it. So by making it into bread, you then release those nutrients. And so it's a bit like a sprouted grain. Suddenly it becomes a different product. The longer you ferment it, the more you get out of it. So any grains are good, but the longer fermentation is more important. And just because it looks brown doesn't mean it is brown.
Right. You could argue that nobody does well on gluten.
No.
650,000 celiacs in the UK.
Oh, no,
4 million people intolerant to gluten. So you could argue that people aren't great on it.
No, and it's got a bad rep, hasn't it, gluten? Yeah. But I think the longer a lot of people say, and I can't say this for myself because I never struggled with it, that the bloating goes away. They don't get this bloating when they eat the breads that have been long fermented.
If I eat your sourdough, I have no problems. But if I was to eat the stuff you get in the supermarket, I would get bloating.
Yeah, and you can
Guaranteed.
see, and it's about the fermentation. I mean, they make a dead dough with a block of grey chemicals and fats that go into it. You know, it's got anti-moulding, anti-staling, so it never goes off. You know, and this stuff is in your bread, so it's not bread anymore. Not really.
It's not food.
Bread is a simple product.
Yeah. Do you know? And the other way to think about it is how long it takes to go off. If a product you can stick a product in your room temperature in your kitchen, and in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, it's still looking the same. then I'm thinking there's something wrong
it's
with
the
that.
chemicals. I would say if you're cooking at home, you haven't got a cupboard full of chemicals, have you? They're not there for your benefit, as I keep saying. They're there for the producer's benefit, and they shouldn't be eating it. You don't need it. It's not part of your diet.
No.
But it is this over catering that's come since the First World War. This reaction to what happened at the First World War.
Well, when me and Jude, me and the current Mrs. Perry were in the States, we bought a loaf of bread from Walmart, and we were travelling all around, and we had it for 2 weeks. And when you got it out, it was still soft and fluffy. I mean, I have no idea what was in that, but probably not
good.
Yeah.
But I mean, the bacteria don't think it's food.
No,
It's probably not food.
But I read on your website a loaf of your bread will last a week.
Yeah, so when I say a week, something like a white tin, because there's nothing in it apart from flour, water and yeast, and we make it with something called a sponge and dough, where it's 20% of it is dough made the night before, if you like old dough, which means it creates more flavour and texture, but it doesn't have any oils or fats in it, so therefore it will stale quicker. Something like a sourdough, by its very nature of its chemical build-up, doesn't stale as quick, 5-6 days. I mean, I quite like it when it's about 8 days old, I actually but toast it. And, the use of what I call bread on the table, in the old days, you'd have bread on the table, that would be filling you up. It's in the middle of the table, you carve a bit off, you cover it in butter, you'd eat it. That's got gone now, hasn't it? Nobody has bread on the table anymore.
Sunday breakfast is the only time we do that.
Yeah. But
we put ours in the freezer. We get yours and we slice it and chuck it in the freezer.
It freezes fine, yeah. Because it's not as high in water as... Because they use a lot of things like... soya, which absorbs twice as much water as flour, so therefore the soya in the bread means they can get more water, and water is actually quite heavy, so the bread has a heavier weight, but actually the flour content is what's important. A bit like when you get a tin of coconut milk and it contains 10% coconut, it's that sort of thing. What is it then?
Exactly.
Is it coconut milk? No, not really.
I know. It's scary, isn't it?
It is. Well, as I say, our bread is more expensive. I cannot deny it. And we have to make a living, but it's not profiteering as everyone imagines. I've got a Ford C-Max out there from 2008. There's easier ways for me to make money doing this job than not what I do. But I use local farmers like Watton Farm. He grows a field of spelt and rye for me. We have to take that. I can't say
so that's local, is it?
Yeah. Well, it's about 30 miles away.
That's my favourite. Your spelt. I love that.
It's grown in a field in Leicestershire, and but the thing is, I can't say to him, I don't want any this week, or I don't want any one next year. I have to buy all of that spelt and get it milled, and all of that rye and get it milled, and cold pressed rapeseed oil he does for us as well. So it's right out, it's completely cold pressed for us, raw as it can be. And the other one is Katie Machin does our eggs, so she has little huts. She's in Melton, but I can't cancel my eggs because she has to kill her chickens. So she threatens me with killing chickens if I try and cancel an egg order. So when you work with local farmers, it's more complicated. Milk we get from Vine Farm, it comes in milk chains, plastic milk chains to us. And then we send them back, but we give our waste bread, so anything we don't sell in the shop goes to the cows. So it's really important that we have this deal with them. We get a bit of discount on the milk, and we get the fresh milk in milk chains delivered to us 3 times a week. That's local farmers. Whissendine Windmill, Boston Windmill we work with as well. Lincolnshire Poacher Cheese, Long Clawston, these are people we use for our products. Grasmere Farm we use for all our pork products.
Wow.
So again,
that's environmentally friendly.
But it's not just that, but it's also in the local area, so it keeps the money in the local area. But we've just got our B Corp this week, which we're very proud of. B Corp is internationally recognised environmental social accreditation. And we're the only ones in Rutland to get it, and we just got it this week, so we're really proud. It took us a year to get, but we already did most of it since the day we opened. It's been really important. We built the new bakery at Hooby with everything in mind about the future. So it's all electric, so as electric becomes more environmentally friendly, so our carbon footprint will drop. We don't have extraction, we have passive ventilation, which takes like a Bedouin tent, the air comes in from outside, takes the hot air out the top, which is fine until it's 40 degrees outside. And so we've set the electric up to be able to do electric vans when we can afford them. So we'll be able to, plug in electric vans to move on. So we're preparing for the future as well. And so all this came to give us the B Corp. So if you look it up, it's there's not many people got it in the UK.
Do you have to know your carbon footprint?
You can't.
You have to measure it.
Not really, no. So it depends what you do. So what we're doing is we're saying this is what we do, and then you have to prove it. You can't just say, oh, we don't use anything. You have to then prove that fact, and it's constantly about getting each thing over the line, proved, paperwork, evidence. If you say all our customers are in, 98% are local to where the shops are and all that, then I have to give them postcodes of some customers. I have to give them our suppliers' postcodes, and then they check it all out. And it was all done in Brazil, strangely enough.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was, that's what our contact was in Brazil. But to get there, it took us a year because we had to keep proving it. And so, and it's all evidence-based, which I like because it means you can't lie about it. You can't say, we're 60% local produce. We proved it, And that's quite important for us to have that environmental. I think with younger people, the environmental policy is actually more important than the health. Whereas with older people, the health might be more important. But, we've all got kids and we're thinking about their future too.
Sure.
And I think, and for me, it's about making that effort, thinking positively, as long with a new product, what's its environmental impact as well.
Wow.
So where can people buy your products? Is it only from the Hambleton outlets?
No,
or
we
do you sell
do have
through other?
Yeah, we have wholesale. We're roughly 50-50, I would say, on take-ins. So we have about 150 wholesalers, and we have 8 shops from St Ives as far out as we'll go. Cambridge, yeah, not Cornwall. Yeah. And we anywhere between sort of Peterborough, Leicester, Nottingham, as far out as Northampton. We've just started at Silverstone, doing a hotel there. And some people are restaurants, some are cafes, delis, and farm shops, and they'll resell the bread. Other people use the bread for, making their products in the cafes and things.
You've got quite a few shops now, haven't you?
8 shops, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you expanding?
So it's an organic thing, right? So we're thinking we've got 8 shops now. That's enough. Let's not do any more. And then something will come up, and you think, that Forte's shop looks pretty good. Well, we might do that. So and then we look into it, and it's not an overnight thing. It's a so if you take on something like a new round, you've got so we took on Cambridge, the University Arms in Cambridge as a new customer, and we opened a shop in St Ives, so that opens up a new round, and then you're looking for customers in that area that you can sort of service on the way and on the way back.
So do you sell through retailers at all? So I can't find your products in Co-op or Tesco's or anything like that?
So we don't suit supermarkets because we don't have the shelf life for them. It just wouldn't work for them. They would say to us, "Oh, we don't want to pay that much. This is what we normally get." They have their margins that and they're quite tight, and so there's nothing in it for me. It takes me the same amount of effort and money to make a product, no matter what I do. I might as well sell it retail and get the money for it. So that the effort is in, and the time is exactly the same on every product, whether it's wholesale or retail. You don't want to be giving it to supermarkets because they want thousands, and we can't do that.
No. Well, so that's an amazing story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is crazy. So let's talk about the less healthy products. What are your thoughts on that? As in the stuff that's got loads of sugar in it.
So recipes are recipes, as I always say. So if you're making a donut and you're rolling it in sugar and there's sugar in the dough and you're deep frying it, it's a donut. It's unavoidable. We don't add sugar. We have a sugar quantity. So if I'm making a bun, I have a certain amount of sugar that goes in to enrich that dough, along with butter and eggs. That's what it is. That's a product. If I make a pastry, it has a certain amount of sugar in it. If I make a filling, for lemon tart, it's got lemon in, but it needs more sugar to counteract that sort of sharpness. So you're going to put more sugar in something that's sharper. So we use butter. We use cane sugar. That's a big thing for us, that we use cane sugar, which is...
Why do you use cane sugar?
Well, it's natural. First and foremost, it's got flavour, so the likes of Muscovado, Demerara actually taste of something. They're not just bland and white. And even the bleached sugars, if it's cane, it's much nicer. It's much nicer to work with. So cane sugar is more important. I know it's got an import, and I know it doesn't come from the UK, unlike sugar beet, but it's not a chemical process. We only use sea salt, for instance, from Holland, because it's cheaper in Holland, but also they're one of the few people that do it. And so we only use sea salt in all our products. We don't use any sort of, again, because of additives.
What are your thoughts on? There's a paradox, isn't there? Because you've gone out of your way to make amazingly healthy bread, and then the other half of your business is making something that's pretty unhealthy.
Well, unhealthy or natural?
I would say unhealthy.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're not healthy.
I'm not sure that there is an unhealthy product, there are. If you eat a donut every day, that's unhealthy. It doesn't matter whether it's a good one or a bad one. But if you have a donut once a fortnight, how much harm is that going to do you?
How many people who eat donuts have a donut once a fortnight?
I probably have a donut once every 3 or 4 months. Every now and again, for no reason at all, and I only buy those nasty ones from Tesco's, but for no reason at all, I'm in Tesco's, and they might have some in the bargain bucket at the end of the day. And I fancy those. But I might do that 2 or 3 times a year. That's not going to kill me. That's not going to make any difference to my life.
No, but you're quite lucky because there are people that struggle when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, so, there is a thing. So a product has to taste good, and it has to be true to what it is. So if I make a coconut tart, right, it's the coconut, the sugar, the butter, the coconut oil that's gone into it, It is, and it's got fresh raspberries on top, and it's got a sweet pastry base and some raspberry jam. That's quite a lot of sugar in that. There's no denying it, but I couldn't make it any other way. It is what it is.
Yeah.
There's no single additive in it. There shouldn't be there. It's all fresh. It's butter. It's cane sugar. It's so in that respect.
It's not Mr. Kipling.
It's not Mr. Kipling, but it is, and it won't last forever. But it is a true product.
So I guess what you're saying is it's a healthier version of an unhealthy product.
Again, I would say nobody's eating these every day. It's a treat. It's a I don't see anybody.
I think what you're saying is if you're going to eat something like that, you're better off eating one that's made naturally and isn't going to last for 3 weeks in the cupboard than to go and eat one that will.
Yeah.
And
it hasn't got full of ultra-processed ingredients.
Well, I do think cakes are a treat. They always have been, and savouries to a lesser degree. But is it not a treat food that you don't eat it every day? I mean, I don't have a cake every day.
Our nation has got a massive problem with that. 55% of the food that we eat in UK now is ultra-processed.
Yeah, I do know that. Yeah.
Compared to 13% in Italy and France. So we have got a big problem in this country.
We have, and similar to America, really. And if anything, we're just a little bit behind America, I would say. But ultra-processed for me is a no-no.
Oh, yeah.
That is a complete... And you say that sugar is bad, and I do, and butter could be bad for you. The facts about it.
But I'm good with butter.
Yeah.
Do you know, ever since I read the book from... Van Tuliken, ultra-processed people. I threw all my... we had butter spreads.
Which ultra-processed,
chucked all those away.
Full of palm oil.
We went and bought an old-fashioned butter dish.
Yeah.
And we're now putting butter in that, in the kitchen, and it's perfect. It's nice and soft, and it lasts weeks. But
you wouldn't say the same thing about cane sugar. That's better than processed sugar, such as sugar beet. You wouldn't say that cane sugar, which is a natural product, is not better than processed sugar.
The way I would argue that is that cane sugar has the same effect in the body.
Oh, it does,
as normal sugar, sucrose. So your insulin will respond in exactly the same way.
And it's digested quickly, and it's a quick hit, and it will bring on type 2 diabetes.
50% gets converted to fat.
Yeah.
Cane sugar, sucrose, it doesn't matter. It doesn't distinguish. But put butter in your body, and your body will treat that like fat. And that's not an animal fat. It's a myth that animal fat is bad for us. It's not bad for us.
We'll use lard when we make our hand-raised pastries.
And we've been eating it for thousands and thousands of years, and our consumption of fat has not gone up.
No.
But sugar is a different story, and margarine.
But again, since the First World War, ultra-processed food has become a thing.
Yeah.
Slowly getting worse and worse. And you're eating so many additives. If it doesn't look like it's meant to look, if it looks too clean and tidy, or too perfect, it's most likely going to be ultra-processed.
Well, one of the great ironies is that a lot of the plant-based food is the most ultra-processed of all. It's awful.
Vegan cheese, I mean, oh my God. If you're going to be a vegan, don't eat the cheese, please.
Yeah. And gluten.
Luckily, I'm still primarily a carnivore. So.
Yeah, gluten-free products. To make a gluten-free product, I couldn't do it to make a gluten-free loaf without completely going against everything I believe in. So I would say if you are a celiac, there are better things to eat than gluten-free bread, but people want it. They crave it. I can't make it. I did try. I tried to make it with egg whites and things like that, but then trading standards said there's too much flour in the air, so we couldn't make it anymore. But it wasn't my favourite bread, put it that way. And I do feel really sorry for people who cannot eat bread or gluten in any way, shape or form. It's a really cruel disease. I mean, it's celiac disease. Gluten intolerance is slightly different, but celiac disease is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
It's difficult for anyone who's got that, and I feel for them. I do, honestly. And I'm probably the Antichrist when it comes to that.
No, but I mean, I think you're doing the right thing, aren't you? Because you're those those cakes aren't.
I would not say they're healthy. I would never say it was healthy.
But if I was going to buy a treat, I would buy those any day over.
And it is a treat. I think that's the thing. Nobody's coming in. They've got guests coming round. They've got family coming round. They've gone to visit somebody. These are the people who are buying them. They're not, I'm going to have another one of these today and tomorrow or whatever. Nobody wants that much sugar in their life anyway. I don't think it's a thing. Nobody comes in and buys a donut every day. They just don't. Not in our place. Probably because we're too expensive. But
they go down to Tesco's.
Yeah, you get 4 for £1 or 5 for £1, whatever it is. Yeah.
But our donuts are made with butter. They're made with no additives. They're made with sugar. They're made with eggs. They're made with local milk and eggs. And these are not cheap products for me to buy, and that's the difference. I am not robbing anyone. I am literally using very good ingredients and a good way of making bread and cakes. Even though I can't deny sugar is probably not the healthiest thing to put in it, but it's a sweet thing. In savouries, we use animal fats. We use butter. That's what we use, and we use our own flours, and we make everything, every single pastry, everything from scratch. We are in control of what we give our people. I've made 750 kilos of mincemeat for Christmas, all from scratch, in the big old mixers ready to go for Christmas, because I control what's in it. We only put sugar in buns and cakes. That's the only sort of bread that has it. It has sugar in it and we say it's got sugar in. It doesn't. Maltose is a natural sugar. It doesn't need to be added to. Every recipe I read, domestic recipe, says put a spoonful of sugar in, like it's going to make a difference to the yeast. It's going to feed it or whatever. You don't need it. It's feeding on the maltose sugar, which is in the flour. Bread doesn't need to be sweet. American bread's horrendously sweet.
It's awful.
Yeah, and quite often supermarket bread has a lot of sugar in it. I mean, not all. I mean, they are better than they used to be. To be fair to supermarkets, but it's still the cheapest thing on the shelf. What often annoys me is that a cup of coffee can cost you £4.50. A pint of beer can cost you £6.50. My loaf of bread costs you £4, and it's feeding a family of 4. It's a family. It's edible, but people have this thing about milk being cheap and eggs being cheap and bread being cheap. Well, it's not cheap to make properly. It's cheap to make badly. And that's the difference, and supermarkets know when you walk in and you see bread cheap, milk cheap, eggs cheap, everything must be cheap. It's almost a con, if you like.
Yeah, I used to work for Tesco's when I was young, and I mean that was 40 years ago, and they were telling me then it is loss leaders.
Yeah.
We don't make money on bread and milk and sugar and eggs. We make money on tinned salmon and
all the things, all the extras you add. And once you're in, you're in it. Yeah. And I'm terrible when I go shopping because I like cooking. My wife hates it if I get a Waitrose. The kids are going to have to come out of school again.
So what's your favourite thing that you make?
I don't have a favourite thing. I know it's hard to say. I like the new things that I'm coming up with and creating. I like the new ideas and things like that. And then I move on. I eat the white sourdough. I love the spelt dark sourdough. That's one of my, because it's local spelt and it's organic flours. Even though we're not an organic bakery, simply because I could not use local ingredients if I was. So we use a lot of organic flours, but we're not an organic bakery. But we use Gilchester, which is a heritage wheat. Wild Farm, which is regenerative. That's really important because regenerative, you don't get any benefits that are visible in my products because we're working towards it now, 20% of it in everything. So regenerative means you're not sustaining it, you're bringing the soil back to life away from intensive farming, which is going to have to happen eventually because they can't keep it up. Right. And so slowly but surely, Wild Farms are doing this job. So we work along with them, and our aim is to get 20% in all our products, and then we can grow that percentage. Rather than have one product that says Wild Farm, it doesn't really work. It needs to be in everything. But there's no benefit for me in this. I'm doing it for an environmental reason. And Gilchester is heritage wheats, old-fashioned tall wheats. We use them. We use Boston Windmill, which is stone ground organic. We're always looking for the good ingredients. Whissendine to a degree, not quite so easy because he's a sort of on his own job. But these are the products that are important for us to get in and local. Being organic would mean I couldn't do any of that. I wouldn't be able to buy from the local girl because she's not organic for the eggs or the cheese or the spelt and things like that.
So is your bread closer to something that you'd have eaten 100 years ago?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Go back as far as you like to Egyptian times. It hasn't changed. We've got better at it, and we've got, but it literally, in the warmth, the flour would have fermented. Because wild yeast, which is what you make your sourdough or anything, before sort of Louis Pasteur got his microscope out, and you could find out yeast was a living organism. It was a gift from God. It made beer, it made everything. Yogurts, cheeses, it made bread.
Antibiotics.
Antibiotics. But because and so that and probably in the heat of the Egyptian or the Iranian desert, the flour fermented, and you got bubbles in it, and they realise this is the way to go, and you keep a little bit back, and then you do the next one and the next one, and that's probably how it all started. And it wasn't big puffy loaves like we got now, because the gluten content would have been terrible, and it would have been quite a flat, heavy loaf. That's why flatbreads are really more prevalent sort of in North Africa. And then sort of your rye and your dark, because Northern European countries like us, it's all about rye, barley, and.
I used to love your Borodinsky.
Oh no, I took it off during COVID, strangely enough, because we lost all our wholesale overnight, and we thought, this is not good. What are we going to do now? Is that rabbit in the headlights effect of. What happens now? We've lost half our business overnight.
So are you bringing that one back on?
Yeah, it's in my to-do for January. Well, it might not be the Borodinsky though. It might be another rye, but 100% rye.
I'm half German.
That's amazing.
And that's how
all those bread
stuff.
products and racehorses as well.
That's what I used to eat growing up. Really dark bread like that.
That's where I first saw the dark German breads, was when I was in Larbrook, and I went to I think it was Goch, a local town, and I saw this German bakery in the window. I thought, look at all that, it's amazing stuff. And I thought that got me into the sort of dark breads and things like that.
Proper flavour.
Yeah, it was good stuff, yeah.
But that was originally made for was it the Russian army?
Yeah, apparently so. Battle of Borodino, was it? The story goes, and I am told, and I have no evidence for this, is that they've defeated Napoleon, and coriander was a thing that grew in the field out there, and the Tsar's wife somehow, that you made the bread, the rye bread, and dipped it in vodka or something as a sort of a celebration, I'm told, yeah. And coriander was a local ingredient they used in it, so... Wow. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
But that's good news. You're bringing that back on. I'll be buying that.
Yeah, I like that as well. It's
big
one of my
lump of butter on the top.
Yeah, it's good bread. It is sticky but good.
Yeah, you can't. Presumably, you can't slice that in your.
No, if you try and slice it on the slicer, it glues it up completely. You have to put it in the oven at a reasonable heat and then let it drop. It takes hours to bake. We're not trying to rush it through. Yeah. But it's just that we have to bake everything else before it goes in the ovens, or nothing goes in the ovens.
That's good news.
Yeah, we will bring it back. And the beer balm I want to bring back. So the beer balm we used to get because you have to take it off a bitter. It has to be a top fermenter. And on the grain store beers, you have this big froth on top, and they pull a blocker out and all that froth pours away. And it's a waste product to them. But for us, we used to let it settle, take the yeast and make the beer balms. Beer balms are a very British way of making bread. You've heard of barn pots and barn cakes. Yeah. So because bakeries used to be next to breweries, and you would use the balm. Barn pot means you take this little bit of yeast and it would blow up if the hot weather and all that. And they would then make the bread from beer, because it depended whether we were Catholic or Protestant at the time. But if you were Catholic, the Pope wouldn't let you use anything with alcohol. So you couldn't make bread with beer or wine, yeast or anything like that. So it's a very British way. That's why sourdoughs were sort of more prevalent on the continent, and sort of balm and smaller whole bread is more prevalent on the UK. Yeah.
Was that so that you go to church on Sunday because it's the only way you could get a drink?
Probably, yeah. A bit of bread.
So that's coming back in January as well?
Yeah, well, I won't say January, but in the new year, I'll say, because I have a list of things I try and get done in the January when it's quiet. And new products, new customers, things like that. They'll all wait till January, and then I'll go, okay, now we'll think about Hambleton Bakery and do that. Yeah.
So you've got a cafe now as well?
Yeah, let's go, Mum. Yeah. It was a no-brainer, really, because we make everything from scratch. Yeah, so literally every ingredient we make from scratch. So I'm not selling it at wholesale. I'm selling it at cost to the cafe. But then the government take 20% away, so it's back to normal. So yeah, it's but. It's all right if you're something like a Costa and you put your products in the cafe and they last 6 months and never go off. Ours only have a day's shelf life, 2 days shelf life. So if you've not sold it, you've lost it. So it's that sort of... But the 20% VAT doesn't help our business, put it that way.
I bet the staff do well.
Well, that's the thing. They can take home anything that's left at the end of the day. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm tempted to get a job.
Get a job there.
A little part-time job. I tell you, it'd be fun delivering the bread, wouldn't it? A little delivery driver.
Well, most of our
myself
drivers
doing
are
that.
retired gentlemen, not usually ex-coppers or from other businesses or even their own businesses. And for them, it's a 3-day-a-week, 6-hour drive, and they love it. It suits them really well. You know, they get some away from the wife for the wife's benefit, not for anything else. And so it's not enough to give them a full-time job. It's enough, and they enjoy the sort of interaction with customers and things like that.
So do you deliver to individuals?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, not houses. No, individuals, as in wholesale customers. All sorts, really. Anything.
So, finally, do you actually have any spare time to actually enjoy yourself and have a bit of fun, like hobbies and things?
What you've got to remember is I've got 2 sites and 24-hour business, yeah. And WhatsApp's a brilliant tool, but it never stops pinging. So I can't go on holiday or anywhere with it. I mean, I employed someone while I was sitting in Mallorca this year.
So you did go on holiday?
I did go on holiday. We had a week away in Mallorca so our kids are quite old now. It's probably the last holiday they'll go on with us. And I'm still getting pings. So it kind of never ends, and it's the kind of thing we think, I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to turn my phone off, I'm not going to listen. You wake up in the morning, there's a whole shitstorm happening. So, you know, it's better to keep on top of it. But yeah, we've got 4 shifts, 24-hour business, 2 sites, all the vans going out. It's a lot to sort of walk away from. But we have a brilliant general manager, and we have some brilliant bakers as well. And we have the office staff who you know, so we're lucky. We've got some very, very good staff. The shop staff are brilliant as well. I'm not just saying that, they really are. They understand the product. They're not just giving it away. The drivers don't just drop the bread off. They talk to the customers and they give you feedback. And I never let a complaint go. I will always be straight on a complaint. I ring them up and I find out what the problem is. I try and fix it, and I talk to them. I hate the fact that somebody doesn't get back to you if there's something wrong. So that's another big thing for me, is actually dealing with complaints as well. And we make mistakes because we're human.
Yeah, well, the thing is, with bread, you're bound to get stuff with holes in it occasionally, aren't you?
Well, so especially when you long ferment.
That's great fun, isn't it? When you slice it and
you can't tell till you bought it.
Exactly.
And so because you're long fermenting, you can sometimes get what's called a rip in the seam. So you roll the bread up. It's mostly tin loaves. Or sometimes you might get that it's overfloured when they've shaped it, and so it didn't stick together properly. I hate it. It drives me mad that you get this sort of pocket in the thing, and it's normally a rip seam. That's caused it. We can see it if we slice it, but we can't see if it's unsliced. So I've no idea what's wrong with it till I get the complaints. And we can go. Usually it's the hot weather that does us on it. When the weather gets hot, that's when it happens most.
Do you know that exactly the same happens to concrete?
I didn't know that. No,
because in one way or another, all of us have been involved in fillings. I used to do deep foundations, which are filled with concrete. You've filled loaves and rolls and things.
Yeah.
And you did teeth.
See, look. Something connects us.
Yes, 6 degrees of separation and all that. I've got one last question for you.
Yep.
The same American import daughter-in-law has decided that she's going to make monkey bread for Christmas breakfast. I have not got the faint. I've agreed to eat this, but I have no idea what it is. Can you enlighten me?
Yes, certainly. So monkey bread is basically small pieces of bread stuck together. Usually it's a dessert type thing with caramel on it or something like that. And so it's a tear and share, if you like. It can be anything from sort of 12 pieces to about 50, depending what you're doing. But we did one for Silverstone Racetrack, which was a tear and share type, and they kept calling it monkey bread. I'm thinking, it's not monkey bread, is it? I had to look it up. I didn't even know what it was. And so now I'm an expert on monkey bread now because I've read about it.
Excellent. I look forward to sampling it.
Brilliant. Do you know, that was quite a while we were chatting there. And it just went like that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Julian.
No, it's a pleasure.
Really, really, really appreciate your time.
No, it's been enjoyable, actually.
Far more fascinating than I was expecting.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
I hope you enjoyed listening to our chat with Julian. Photos and links to Hambleton Bakery are on our webpage. In the next episode, we visit the newly opened Angler in Oakham and chat with the new manager, Walker. And our special guest is Will Hetherington, who is well known for his series of books, Will's Walks. As you know, we are not a money-making venture. Our goal is to promote Rutland's watering holes and to give a voice to local folk. You can help us by leaving a podcast review, which will only take a few minutes, ideally on Apple Podcasts, as that is where we have most listeners, although we are grateful for any review anywhere. Your reviews helps to promote our little county. Thank you. The music is by Tom Arnold. That was a Pub Natter broadcast.